Controlling a Wheelchair with Thought, Artificial Intelligence for EEG-based BCI. My name is Harrison Rudd, and I'm a neuroscience major. Neuromuscular disorders typically are characterized by the breakdown of neural tissue, oftentimes leading to muscle tissue wasting and the loss of motor movement control. Neuromuscular disorders affect the nerves that control voluntary motor movement. When these nerves are disrupted, it becomes difficult or even impossible to control motor movements in the affected areas, such as the face, arms, or legs. As neuromuscular disorders worsen, they bring eventual loss of strength, increasing disability and the possibility of deformities. There are over 150 types of neuromuscular disorders that render people unable to walk, often requiring the use of a wheelchair or other means of assisted mobility. Each of these alternative modes of transportation requires the use of limbs and/or the assistance of another person. Annually, there are new cases of neuromuscular disease worldwide, more so in higher developed and more populated countries than in less populated and more underdeveloped countries. There are 5,600 new cases of ALS annually in the United States. There are 2.5 million individuals diagnosed with MS worldwide, and there is a mean time of 4.5 years before a formal diagnosis of neuromuscular disease is made in most patients. Patients with neuromuscular disorders have a 58% mortality rate and a 61.5% increased chance of a shortened lifespan in young and early onset patients. 10.5 years is the mean time from diagnosis to when patients with neuromuscular disorders are using a wheelchair. Many other medical conditions render patients unable to walk or ambulate without assistance, such as spinal cord injury, brainstem stroke, or botulism. 50% of spinal cord injuries in the United States are considered complete, meaning there is a complete loss of function at and below the level of injury. There are 450,000 individuals living with spinal cord injury in the United States, and it's costing an average of $9.7 billion annually. Electroencephalography, otherwise known as EEG. EEG is a record of postsynaptic potentials generated by neurons in the cortex of the brain. EEG measures electrical activity of cortical neurons. Ultimately discovered by Hans Berger, the use of EEG functions in this paradigm as a non-invasive measure for obtaining cortical brainwave data. This is our laboratory setup of our 32-channel EEG, recording visual spatial feature detection tasks to see if our neural network algorithm can classify what an individual is looking at solely based on brainwaves. Artificial intelligence, also known as deep learning, machine learning, neural networks, and a variety of other names. Neural network algorithms have the capacity to process data in a similar manner to nerve cells and are modeled after the complex neurophysiological processes that occur within the human brain. Deep learning methods aim at learning specific feature hierarchies by utilizing features from higher levels of the hierarchy formed by composition of lower level features. Learning within the neural network occurs through a period of training, whereby input is continuously fed through the neural network for several hours on end, depending on the data being analyzed. If the dataset is large and robust, training periods can be anywhere from 1 day or more. A schematic representation of a fully connected neural network compared to a nerve cell can be seen to the left of the page. An example of our EEG brainwave image data is to the middle of the screen, which was then fed through our neural network algorithm, which is a mix between a convolutional and a fully connected neural network. An example of the code can be shown at the bottom of the screen. Brain-computer interface, otherwise known as BCI. BCI provides the brain with non-muscular communication and control channels for exerting and conveying motor movement commands to the external world by measuring, analyzing, and decoding brain signals. A variety of methods for monitoring brain activity might serve as a BCI. Electroencephalography was chosen for this paradigm, but you can also utilize magnetoencephalography, positron emission tomography, functional magnetic resonance imaging, or optical imaging. The latter three depend on blood flow, have long time constraints, and are less amenable to rapid communication with a brain-computer interface. EEG-based BCI. EEG data is quick to obtain. EEG is highly responsive as a platform in communication with BCI. EEG data can be utilized to train a neural network algorithm in a variety of ways. For example, at the beginning of our trials, we utilized image-based EEG input, where we would convert our image into a gray-scaled heat map to attempt to classify thought-based commands that way. We were ultimately unsuccessful and had to convert to a numerical analysis. We then converted our EEG brainwave images into a compressed format where all of the pixels were represented by numbers on an image input. We then utilized that data to feed it through a mixed convolutional and fully connected network, which yielded a significantly higher level of validation within our training period, illustrating the possibility of being able to classify and predict thought-based commands solely on EEG brainwave data. The challenges present within our research consist of the high number of neuromuscular disease patients, the high annual cost in the United States in treating neuromuscular diseases, and the high prices for EEG and high-powered computational equipment. There are a low number of potential solutions, and most of the research into EEG-based ECI-controlled electric wheelchairs do not use self-generated stimuli paradigms, meaning they present each subject with images or videos to watch while they record brainwave data. In our laboratory paradigm, we have subjects think of forward, backwards, left, and right movements while we record EEG brainwave data. Our project goal is to ultimately create a feedback loop whereby the brain can communicate with an electric wheelchair through the mediation of our BCI system. Computational challenges within this paradigm and moving forward lie in training our EEG image data, which takes about 20 plus hours on an NVIDIA 1080 graphics card. We need to train initial neural network model on thousands of images, which takes time and high computing power, which the equipment is very expensive for. Once the preliminary model is trained, classification is much faster.